And Ms. Douglas, will you please call roll?
Certainly. Director Kelly Sloop.
Here.
Director Lewis Taylor.
Here.
Chair Chelsea King.
Here.
Director Kirsten Wyatt.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, very good. We are going to start with our students. Thank you for coming out on Stafford Road on a dark, rainy night to be here with us. And I'll call up first our Westland High School representative, Sky Gomes.
Good evening, Dr. Ledwig and school board members. It is so nice to see everyone again, and I'm very excited to update you about everything that has happened this past December and some of our plans for January. And once again, I appreciate the opportunity to share with you what is happening at Westland. At the beginning of December, we had our Westland's Got Talent pageant. It consisted of multiple different clubs and sports teams competing in different games and dress-up days to gather points throughout the week. And then on Saturday the 10th, they showed off their amazing talents and participated in fun trivia games. It went super well, and we had a great turnout, and our winners are in the top right there. It was the robotics club, which was super fun. And then leading up to break, we had a spirit week, which consisted of days like Hat Day, Hit the Slopes Day, PJ Day, Blanket Day, and Ugly Sweater Day. So we have a couple pictures of those up there. We had great participation from students and teachers, and it was super fun to see everyone's different outfits. Over break, our boys basketball team competed in multiple different tournaments, one of those being the Les Schwab tournament, which consisted of some of the best teams throughout the nation. Our amazing basketball team placed first in the tournament and is now ranked 6th in the nation, which is super exciting. And then with finals week coming up, our leadership program will be putting together little gifts for every one of our students as a little form of encouragement to get them through the final first semester. For some of them ever, if they're freshmen, which is super exciting. And then to end off our semester, we will be having our winter ball on January the 28th at the Melody Ballroom. And our theme is Under the Northern Lights. So that will be super exciting. I know I, along with many other students, are excited, and I will update you with how that goes next month. And then lastly, coming up to February, we are already planning our annual Amazing Race, which will again also be super fun, and Unity Week. And I will be updating you on those the next time I see you. And then just for a little gift of appreciation to thank you for everything we do, we have some Westland t-shirts for you guys. But just once again, thank you so much for your time. And I love updating you about Westland.
Thank you very much, Sky. And I'll call up our Wilsonville representative, Eli Severs.
Good evening, Dr. Ludwig and school board. I'm so excited not only to talk about some of the great things that are happening at Wilsonville High School, but also to celebrate School Board Appreciation Month. As a student, I very much appreciate all of the personal time and energy that is put into envisioning the goals of our district and setting the standards for our education. I definitely understand that it's not always the easiest thing to do, but your work never goes unnoticed or unappreciated. Now, I would like to talk about some upcoming events at Wilsonville High School. Our leadership team is currently working on a toiletry drive for families that may not have all the products they need, which is why it is important that as a community, we can support each other the best we can. By donating, students will be able to provide toiletries to families that may need them. Our snowboarding team will be having its first competition this Sunday. They've been working very hard, going up to Mount Hood at least once a week, and they've started twice a week. Members of the team are getting very excited about participating in a competition with other schools and other students. There's projected to be 600 students at the competition, not all competing, but they're all very, very excited about that. Our boys swim team this past weekend broke the 400 free relay record, which was a very, very exciting thing. Our swim team isn't very large, so they don't always get a lot of recognition, so that was very exciting for them. And then some more exciting news, Chris Roach, our boys basketball coach, won his 500th game this past weekend. So I send a huge congratulations to him and the basketball team. Some more events coming up. We have our winter formal also coming up on February 11th. So we're all getting very excited about that. And then next, our incredible Wilsonville Broadcast Network has been dedicated to formatting important information in all sorts of ways. And one way in specific is the new Cat-Log, which is WBN's first magazine. The journalism team has done a great job this year, keeping students informed in some of the most fun ways. Finally, it is possible that at future school board meetings, I may plan on bringing a student club advisor to talk about some of their involvement into the school community. I think it'll be a great way to see some of the great accomplishments of our school through a different lens. Thank you so much and happy School Board Appreciation Month.
And currently an 8th grader planning to enter Riverside High School. I welcome up Ronav Sharma.
Good evening, faculty, staff, fellow students, and parents. My name is Ronav Sharma. I am an 8th grader at Meridian Creek Middle School. My hobbies include math competitions, cubing, robotics, and golf. My favorite subjects are mathematics, science, social studies, and geography. I am interested in joining Riverside High School because they are offering 3 new career and technical educational programs in the fields of health occupations, business and marketing, and construction and architecture. I myself am specifically interested in the business and marketing program. Riverside High School will be the first high school in the West Linn-Wilsonville School District to offer the International Baccalaureate program. The International Baccalaureate program is known to be a global leader in international education, focusing on the development of inquiry, knowledge, confidence, and care in students. The International Baccalaureate program is geared towards empowering students to take ownership of their own learning while helping them to develop future-ready skills to make a difference in an ever-changing world. I strongly believe, based on the Family Social Night held on December 13th and all the information provided, that Riverside High School wants all students to thrive by providing a positive and inclusive space. It is a proven fact that high schoolers thrive in their academic setting when they feel that they belong in the community, which means the entire high school and also micro-communities in the forms of classrooms, clubs, activities, advisories, and assemblies. November registration was a success. And for students and families who could not make it to the December 13th Family Social, there will be another information night available on January 26th from 6 to 7 p.m. And there are more spots available for the next academic school year. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Ronav, for being willing to come. I know it's for all of you, most people getting up at the podium and speaking in this environment can be nerve-wracking. So well done doing that. And as always, you are welcome to stay as long as you want, but also if you want to get home, then you are welcome to depart at any time. So thanks. We appreciate you being here. All right, and we will move on to Dr. Ludwig with some recognitions for the School Board Appreciation Month.
Yes, this is that one time in the year. It's an annual event, deservedly so, that school boards across the nation are being thanked and appreciated for their volunteer service. Each of you have full-time jobs, busy families, volunteer in your community. I know each of you are very active in what you do in your neighborhoods and in your community, and you've made this extraordinary commitment in that free time that you also have to learn, to engage, to be curious, to spend time outside of your own personal interests, to hear about the interests of others, to think not just about your own children, but about the children of others, and to help make decisions that steer this school district along a path that serves the community. I'm incredibly grateful for the caliber of this group, the quality of who each of you are, your collective commitment to each other and to the district. So it's my honor to read the School Board Recognition Month proclamation. Whereas school boards create a vision for what students should know and be able to do, whereas school boards establish clear standards for student performance, whereas school boards ensure that student assessments are tied to established standards, whereas school boards are accountable to the community for operating schools that support student achievement, whereas school boards align school district resources to ensure that students meet standards, whereas school boards create a climate that supports the philosophy that all children can learn at high levels, whereas school boards build collaborative relationships based on trust, teamwork, and shared accountability, and whereas school boards are committed to continuous education and training on issues related to student achievement. Now, therefore, we hereby declare our appreciation for the members of the West Linn-Wilsonville School District School Board and proclaim the month of January to be School Board Recognition Month. We urge all citizens to join us in recognizing the dedication and hard work of local school board members in preparing today's students for tomorrow's world. Signed, Dr. Kathy Ludwig, Superintendent. Thank you very much for your service. And you have in front of you note cards, tokens of appreciations from students and staff across the district for your service. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Superintendent Ludwig. And it's my understanding, I know that this is a statewide thing. This is not something we made up. This is something that happens
Yeah.
all around the state. I don't know if it's a national thing.
Yeah,
Or-
there is
yeah.
national, I don't know if it's always in
Yeah.
January in every state, but in Oregon,
Uh-huh.
January is selected.
Yeah, so kind of nice to think school districts around the state are all participating, hopefully with just as much chocolate as we get. And we'll move on to board member reports, and we'll start with you, Director Taylor.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. In my board report, since I've last seen you all, one of the things that I was excited about was a conversation that I had with actually Director Sloop in regard to these amazing Narcan kits that she had put together. And with the big fentanyl rage that's going on right now and our kids being under, I'd say they're under siege with pills and tainted drugs. I passed out a number of kids to families all over Westland. So that was really educational. And I thank you for providing that opportunity. I probably talked to maybe 20 families. And I think the shocking thing was the lack of education around what's going on right in front of us, especially knowing the big bust that just happened here in our own backyard. And I think sometimes we feel like we live in this bubble here in Westland that's untouchable when one of the largest fentanyl busts in the history of the state of Oregon happened right here. So that's scary when we have high school kids running around knowing that that can land in their hands. So the fact that you have something like that and access to that was awesome. Thank you. I also met with a number of parent groups just to hear their story about their lived experiences with their children, whether it be children that suffer from dyslexia, or maybe be children who have going through learning disabilities and things of those sort. And so I reached out to part of my network and met with the executive director at Edison High School over on the Jesuit campus and their board, and learned about their program. We probably spent a couple of hours together. And it was fascinating to learn. One, I didn't know that Edison had been around for 50 years. And so I always say, if our kids and families are plucking people out of our district and sending them other places, I want to go see the places that they're sending them to so that I can learn and see what's so good about it. And one, how can we be better as a district and as a board? And I just didn't have the education. So I wanted to go kind of find out about it. Did some school visits, attended some good basketball events, and watching our kids thrive. So I had a really good time in between our last meeting, so I will concede whatever time may be left and turn it over to the next director. Thank you.
Very good. Thank
Good.
you. And Director Wyatt.
Thank you. And I'm excited to share, especially on this School Board Appreciation Month, that there are two great opportunities coming up for anyone who's interested in running for the school board in the May 2023 election. The Oregon School Board Association is hosting two webinars, and folks can get registered at getonboardoregon.org. And the first webinar is called Running for School Board, the Basics. It's on Wednesday, January 11th at noon. And the second is Running for School Board, the Power of Diversity. And that's on Wednesday, January 25th at noon. And I don't know if it's because sharing information about running for school board, start of a new year, but I've just been doing a lot of reflection of my own decision to run for the school board. And back in 2021, when I filed to run, we were facing so much uncertainty with the future of our schools and COVID. And the message that I was hearing loud and clear was the importance of parents to make decisions for their health, for their family, for their safety. And that parents wanted to have a choice in whether their kids were masked or if they were vaccinated. And that parents didn't want the school district to place a blanket requirement on all children, that parent voices were important. And then shortly after we were sworn in, we unanimously supported the staff recommendation to keep schools open 5 days a week with optional distancing and masking. And so we had heard that parents wanted to make the right choices for their kids, and we honored that. So I've been thinking about this a lot amidst the recent calls for the school district to limit parent choice and what their children can check out at the library. And this coincided with visits to schools similar to Director Taylor, where I had the chance to visit not just the classrooms, but our school libraries and meet the incredible teacher librarians that we have on staff. And on those school visits, I even then saw the effects of parent choice. Some kids in our schools are masked, some kids are not. And we're so fortunate to have these teacher librarians. And if you haven't met your local teacher librarian, I highly recommend it. They're not just gifted educators, but they are experts on literacy and the power of books and reading. And they're also somewhat superhuman in that they don't just know the kids in one class, they know every kid in the school. And they are part of this base of support that our kids have when they go to school, along with their teacher and their principals. And so I just mentioned this in response to our local folks who have signed on to this national movement to ban books in schools. In our district libraries, parents can make the choices for their children. Parents can indicate if there is a book or books they do not want their children to have access to. And I'm really proud of the fact that our staffing levels mean that we've backed that up by having those teacher librarians in our schools who know the kids, they know the families, and we know that this can be accomplished. And so if a parent wants to make that choice for their child, saying you can't read that book, it's a really simple process to make that happen. Our librarians make a note of it, they know our kids, and they respect parent choice. So I observed that some of the parents who were most steadfast for parents' rights when it came to masking, because they were fearing overreach by the school district, are now proposing that very same overreach when it comes to a parent's choice to determine the books that their kids can check out. I'm sharing this because I missed the last meeting, but I want to make it very clear that I do not and I will not support banning books from our school libraries. I support a parent's choice to be involved in their child's education. And one parent's judgment or preference on a book for their family should not be extended to other students or their families. So with that, I just wanted to make it abundantly clear. I appreciate folks coming and sharing their opinion. And I want to end with one small comment that if I can spend time, as with the rest of the board, listening to the variety of ways that people choose to share their opinion about this issue, I think that we should also respect the fact that some members of our school board have chosen to share their opinions in different ways. And I do not appreciate that Chair King especially has been held to a different standard as it relates to sharing information on her views about this issue. So I just would hope that we can all respect the fact that this is an issue that is powerful for all of us. But let's focus our time on being productive. And most importantly, let's focus on a parent's choice to determine what is right for their child. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Director Sloop?
So for my report, not much. I didn't finish my school tour, so I'm excited to be doing the report probably in the next board meeting. And I myself have been meeting with parents, just listening to their concerns about school curriculum, as well as the books. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. And I'm up next. And I just want to jump a little bit on the school board appreciation bandwagon because I actually just wanted to give a shout out to each of you who I've been serving up here with. You each have brought a unique area of expertise with you and have already in your short time here on the board made significant contributions in your own way. You all know I've been on the board for 7.5 years. And I got on the board after 2 years of community advocacy to bring a Spanish immersion program to the district. And then I spent 2 years as a PTA president. Then I spent a term on the budget committee. So I did that 5 years or so before I ended up here on the board. And still, even with that, the board was a pretty steep learning curve for me. Just figuring out like what it is exactly that the board does, what our role is not. It's pretty complicated work, and it's something that this board has been really masterful at navigating. And, it's obvious that the nature of being on the school board has changed. When I got on the board in 2015, Bill Rhodes was the superintendent. I've served with 6 other school board members before the 3 of you got here. And so I just say that to say, like, I think I can speak a little bit to kind of what I've seen over the years. And what I've seen is that you've stepped right in and really hit the ground running in a pretty intense environment. I still remember that first meeting when you got sworn in. And there was nothing like that before. And so just proud of you all for hitting the ground running and offering your expertise, the Narcan policy and the moves there. And Director Taylor, just your financial and business background has been such an asset. And Director Wyatt, your experience with local governance and governance structures was also just, you all were able to just kind of jump right in there. So I just really appreciate you. We don't all vote the same. We don't all see things the same, but we treat each other, with collegiality and professionalism, and we listen and just, have discourse. And that's really valuable to me. The only other thing I wanted to say was that Google released its top 10 most frequently searched terms by zip code. And I was looking at it, and in the Portland metro area, I'll tell you what the top 6 were. Number 1, best daycare near me. Number 2, best preschool near me. Number 3, infant care near me. Number 4, kindergarten near me. Number 5, pre-K near me. Number 6, childcare near me. So the top 6 most searched terms had to do with where can I get support for my young children, my family. And when I was looking at that, I was just really thinking about our partnerships with, our childcare partnerships. And I just thought that this data called forward, us just to really ask, like, are those partnerships being developed to the best of our ability, and just this look at our pre-K programs and asking, if they're operating at the most accessible level. And our partnership with the ESD, I think we're going to be hearing from the Clackamas ESD soon, and they really specialize in that early learning space. And so just honoring that partnership with our ESD. And, K-12 has its own niche. It's not infant care or, daycare, but we have some important relationships that we can be developing and nurturing. So just wanted to share that. And yeah, just gratitude. I know all of us have kids in the schools or recently graduated from the schools, and I appreciate our unique perspectives that we offer here. And Vice Chair Thompson is on her way. So if she shows up, we can see if she wants to give a report, but otherwise we'll move forward to you, Dr. Ludwig.
Thank you. I have a PowerPoint. Thank you, Curtis. So a couple areas I want to highlight for you as a board because they're happening and also because we're hearing about some things. So you've probably been reading in the news recently about the Oregon Paid Leave Act that was passed that is starting in January in terms of starting to collect and garnish wages of employees and contributions from employers to begin that fund from which then employees can draw upon should they qualify beginning in September. So that does impact, of course, school districts. And this is 12 weeks of paid leave, either cumulatively or in portions of that leave time that an employee can take now in the areas of either family leave, which we've always had, FEMLA, medical leave, which we've had, and then this other area called safe leave, which has been added to that part of the legislation. So you'll notice when you're part of the budget committee that we will probably talk about the impact on the budget, but also the benefits that it's now providing employees in terms of that ability to not have to choose between staying at work to get their paycheck and taking a very important leave to support their own health or a family member's. So just want to let you know that is starting. It started this January and that we're tracking that and beginning to implement that. And then we'll make sure our employees are notified along the way. The second thing I want to talk about tonight. So next slide. Thank you. I did talk about this at the December meeting, but a few of you wanted the review again and thought there might be folks who may have a wonder, interested in this topic. We have had, as you know, some concerns from community members about some specific texts in our libraries. And so we are using our review process to take a look at those 8 specific texts through a review group. And again, this is almost the exact same slide that I showed you in December, but just want to go through it again. That review is being done by the Office of Teaching and Learning. There will be administrators, librarians, community member, and parents on that group. May or may not be a student, depending on the whether it's appropriate or depending on the text. There will be a full review of the complaints, reading of the comments that came in, both ones in support of the text and ones with concerns about the text and for their removal, and then reading of the text themselves so that the group can form opinions based on the material taken as a whole, the text selection criteria, why is this text in our library, and then the age and development of the students who have access to those texts. The group will likely need to meet over a course of several meetings because there's 8 books. And to be able to have the cognitive load for that, the time, the stamina, they're going to break it up into several meetings. And so we just need time for the group to be able to do that. These are also people who are serving on the group, have full-time jobs likely, so it's not something they can always do throughout the day or on the weekend. So we're going to try and find time for those meetings. But as expediently as we can, that review will take place. The group will have some findings, form an opinion, and make a decision about each of the texts, present that to the superintendent, and then I will bring that decision to the board. So you'll have that presented in a public meeting. And the decisions could be retain the book in their original location. Each one will have its own consideration, or relocate the book to an advisory location, or remove the book altogether. So that group will make that determination. So that's just the review of that. And the group is forming. Invitations and to members of the group have been sent out, and we're starting to look at dates for meeting. And then the last topic I want to spend just a little bit of time about is because if you've read the Oregonian or been reading some of the national news, there is talk about literacy. And I think last month I talked about dyslexia and how we do screen for that in our school district, and that we do have tiered intervention supports for students who are identified with dyslexia. And it's become kind of a broader question around, well, what's the reading curriculum or the literacy program in our school district? And I wanted to just share a little bit about it. You will have a work session on that later this month, where you'll have access to teachers and principals and instructional coordinators who will engage with you in a more interactive conversation about it. But just for tonight, just wanted to share because some of the information in the article was incomplete, and I thought you needed to know as a board. So what curriculum program do we use in our district? We do use Lucy Calkins' reading and writing units of study, and that's structured, consistent time every day that's set aside, substantial amount of time for students to engage in reading and writing. And this part was left out of the article. We also do have a systematic form of units of study in phonics through either the Lucy Calkins units of studies or the Fontes and Pinnell phonics spelling and word study. And these programs, all of them, are all research-based programs, decades of research. These are designed and put together by universities and people who are reading experts. And they do factor in the critical importance of phonics and the science of reading. So one institution doesn't get to own the term science of reading. It's available for any program or any institution if they have applied science to their reading program to apply the term. So next slide. So when we think about where does phonics land in the world of reading, there's a lot of components of reading, and you'll remember with your own children as they became readers and yourself as a reader, that just the decoding of letters and words and sounds isn't the only aspect of reading, that there's also grammar and word use and comprehension. And so reading experts and reading scientists will talk about what's called 4 cueing systems, 4 important elements of reading. And next slide. So here are the 4 that you want to make sure your reading program does have a comprehensive approach to these. One of the cueing systems is graphophonics. Our students taught letters and sounds, and that letters put together can make different sounds, blends, digraphs, diphthongs. That's one aspect. Another is syntactic. Now you've got those words put together, which are nouns and verbs, suffixes, prefixes. You can take words apart, put them together. They can help you decode. They can help you write. The third cueing system is vocabulary and meaning and understanding. When I put these groups of words together, they make meaning, and I can understand something now. And if they're in the wrong order, it changes the meaning. And I can predict maybe a word that's coming up because I'm following the meaning of a sentence. So that's the semantic part. And then the pragmatic part of the cueing system is, what's this article about? What's this story about? What's this sentence about? What's the purpose? Who's the audience? Because a culture of reading can also influence linguistic culture, as well as societal culture can have influence into language and literacy. So there is that pragmatic cueing part of reading as well. And so next slide. A recent study that was done, a report that provided guidance by the Institute of Educational Science and the National Center for Education Evaluation and Regional Systems almost reinforce those 4 cueing systems. If you're going to have a strong reading program, are you teaching students academic language skills, vocabulary knowledge? Are you developing their awareness of sounds and speech? That's that phonics part. Are you teaching students to decode words? That's that word study that comes alongside phonics. And are you ensuring that every student also reads connected text every day to support their reading accuracy and fluency and comprehension? So almost those 4 cueing systems were reinforced also by the Institute of Education Sciences. So all that to say, next slide, is that we want those elements in our reading program. They are evidenced in our reading program. We have a very comprehensive reading program with both the units of study and our phonics program. And by the way, there's lessons in phonics that then come alongside that reader's workshop. But we also have to remember that there's the impact of the teacher. We can buy lovely curriculum and materials, and they can sit on a shelf, or they can be in the hands of expert people who understand how to teach reading, who get training in how to teach reading, and then deliver beautifully. And here are some of the ways that we ensure that our teachers are putting high text in front of students and quality experiences. So we want to make sure that each teacher is dedicating substantial time every day, whole group instruction, small group instruction, maybe some one-on-one, that there are routines and procedures in place. And when you went to visit classrooms, if you were at an elementary school, you saw Reader's Workshop, you probably saw a buzz of routine and procedures so that students right away had their literacy lesson and then jumped into a lot of independent practice with reading and then with support from the teacher. Or maybe there was a phonics lesson going on when you were there, and then students were encouraged to apply and transfer that skill to their reading or their writing. We want to make sure that our teachers are using high quality resources. So we do select the best of the best for teaching foundational skills of reading and writing for students to read. That teachers also know their students, they're monitoring their progress, they're doing regular and diagnostic assessments, running records, which is sitting alongside a student, hearing them read and documenting the strategies they're using, whether it's a mistake or it's an accuracy piece. We have diagnostic tools like Ames Web. We also have our measures of academic progress. All of that to give feedback to the teacher on how to teach next, as well as to students on how they're progressing. And if a student is struggling, teachers know, and then there's tiered intervention systems that we have in place in all of our schools to provide extra support. And we want our teachers to keep developing as expert reading teachers, which means having coaches in the building. We also have a district literacy coach, and then opportunities in the summer throughout the year to review, renew, refine, and keep developing their skills as a teacher. So alongside really great instructional materials needs to come a really great teacher who knows exactly how to use those materials, knows their students exactly well, and how to place those right moves in front of the student to support them. So as we move into our workshop later this month, I want you to kind of keep that framework in mind, but you'll have more opportunity to engage in that topic. And Dr. Pryor and Michelle Murphy will be facilitating that evening for you for your board work session. And you'll have an opportunity, as I mentioned, to engage with school principals, classroom teachers, and instructional coaches on our current K-5 literacy program. And also when you hear feedback then from parents, know that we're also hearing that feedback, and either we're doing something with it right away or can inform next steps for us. So that's the last slide I want to look at, which is, it is that year where we begin our literacy renewal process. So every 5 to 7 years in Oregon, we're asked to renew one core curricular area, whether it's the year to renew math or to renew social studies. We've done our health and sexuality renewal. So they're on a cyclical basis. There was some pause during COVID, and school districts were allowed to not waive, but change their timeline on some renewals. So we did have ours staggered a little differently, but we are up now for our literacy renewal process for K-5. So here's a timeline for that. We'll begin this February by putting a renewal team together of representatives from each of our primary schools. And they're going to begin to look at what is best practice, what is strong instruction in the area of literacy, what is current research saying, and that will help inform them. Then what are we looking for that's going to make sure that happens? In April and May, they'll review all of that, and they'll keep going kind of recursively back and forth to their schools to inform them of the process. In May, they'll begin to look at recommendations for if this is the high quality instruction we want and the outcomes we want around literacy standards and literacy instruction, what are the curriculum materials that we have available to us? So they'll look at the recommended list from ODE, they'll look at what's available. That's when we'll also have a small representative group of parents bring some input into that group. And then next slide. We'll move into the fall, where some recommendations will be made based on that work from the renewal team and that small group of parents. And then that curriculum by statute will be available for all parents to take a look at and provide feedback, and that will happen around January, February. That can be in person if they want to look at the materials in person. Some families might still prefer to do something online through a recorded session or webinar, so we'll also have that available. And then in March, we'll bring forward to you, the board, the renewal process, as well as the recommendation by the renewal team for the approval materials, and get those ordered. And then our hope is always in the summer to provide as much opportunity for staff to have any professional development or training so they can unpack any materials, especially if there's something new or something that's been revised for implementation in the fall. So I just want to share that with you. You'll hear more about it at the work session. You can also engage and ask questions at that time. So thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Thompson, would you like to give a board report this evening?
No, not tonight, I don't think.
Okay,
Well,
very good.
actually, I'm trying to think that no, I think
You hear Vice Chair Thompson that we had an appreciation for School Board Recognition Month. And students were here and each of them spoke to you as school board members. We did read our proclamation, so I want you to feel part of that, even though you missed it. So thank you for your
Thank you.
service.
Yeah, well, and I apologize for being late.
No, it's-
So
Very good, you made it. All right, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. And board members, the item C has been removed. It's no longer part of that consent agenda. We do not actually need to take any action on that via OSBA. So we're just, the consent agenda just has A and B, the personnel report and the board minutes. So I'll entertain a motion.
I make the motion that we pass the consent agenda.
Very good. I'll second. So Vice Chair Thompson moves, I second, and Ms. Douglas, will you please call the vote?
Kelly Sloop,
Aye.
Lewis Taylor,
Aye.
Chelsea King,
Aye.
Christy Thompson. Aye. Kirsten Wyatt.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, motion passes. And we are moving into the period where we'll have public comment from residents that are directly related to agenda items. And if there's someone in the audience that's speaking to something that is on the agenda and you did not sign up, now's your chance. But it looks like most of the folks who are here are for items that are not on the agenda. So,
Did you want me to speak to? I forgot. I was going to speak to
Sure.
that a little bit.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm just getting my bearings. So in case you're wondering, for the little bit of change where we now have public comment about things that aren't on the agenda until the end of our meeting. Part of it was just in our discussion, what's been happening is we have a lot of people showing up and making comments. And I want you to know that as a board member, I value your comments. I always want to hear from everyone. But what's happening is that in the process of hearing from all of our community members who are showing up and wanting to engage and be involved in the community, it throws our agenda off so much that sometimes when we have people, let's say from Clackamas ESD coming to present, or we might have lawyers coming to present, or last May, we were supposed to have a budget meeting with some of our committee members that were on the budget. And by the time we were able to get to it, because we had taken over 2 hours of public comments, the majority, I believe, of our budget members had dropped off. And so what we want to do is we want to continue to value public comment and hear from all of you at the same time that we honor those who are coming to present at our meetings and honor those timelines. So hopefully you can understand kind of, and this is a trial. This is the first night we are doing it. It's something that Chair King and I spoke about. And then we spoke with Dr. Ludwig and Kelly Douglas as well. But just our attempt to balance honoring the time of our district staff who comes, so they're not here super late. And they can look at the agenda and know, okay, I am going to be presenting at that time, but in the same time, not shutting off public comment and continuing to be able to hear from all of you. So I hope that that makes sense. And that is what I was going to say in my board report.
You managed to make it happen. All right, thank you. So with that, we'll move on to Dr. Sonley Hughes with the business office, and we'll hear that financial report. Or Dr. Ludwig?
I'm just wondering if we want to just officially say there were no public comments.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah,
Either virtually or in person, correct?
correct. There's nobody signed
Okay.
up to speak to anything on the agenda.
Are you speaking to an item on the agenda?
Mr. McCabe, come on up. And if you could just put your info here and then which item you're speaking to.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, very good. Mr. McCabe from West Lynn, you're speaking to something on the agenda
Yes,
and
there's two
you're
items.
up.
Two items on the agenda that I wish to address. One is on the financial report. There was updated there's since last year's budget. At last year's budget, there was going to be a certain level of enrollments. By the time the school year started, the enrollments were less than that, but we did not get any less funds because we got what the enrollment was last year. Even though the enrollment drops this year, which it did significantly, we still get funded at what last year's enrollment was. Yet there was a different in collections of property tax statewide. And so we're actually getting over $1 million less this year. And that's not being shown in the financial report, but it was shown in a report on the Oregon Department of Education site on 11/23. And it also showed our drop in enrollments from what was forecasted to where we really are. And they go off the figures that are provided by the school district. So I'm not making them up, they're not making it up. And that's what it's critical. I mean, to know that we're going to get $1 million less, but at $35 million, we sure have a lot of money in a lot of areas of need that kind of need to be addressed this year, if possible, because the amount that we're showing for the ending fund balance for this year, it is in the prior reports, it was basically based on we hired additional people. And if we are not able to hire these additional people, we're going to have an extremely high ending fund balance because of people that we wish we could hire, but we are unable to hire. And it really needs to be discussed. We just can't just say, boy, it's really nice to have a high ending fund balance. Because when our kids can't have all the resources they need, I don't care what the ending fund balance is. Our kids are more critical. And then on building schools, when you go to the approval of the transfer agreement, Riverside was built for kids in this community. And the transfers that are going to be allowed, there's an issue there we wish to have removed. That we were going to allow transfers of 15 new students that don't even live in the district. If this school is built for this district, it is for this district. It is not for kids that don't live in this district. And it needs to be addressed now, because if the number of students we're going to have enrolled at Riverside is so low, then that really affects the budget. And it needs to be talked about at this time. Thank you.
Where I didn't get a chance to read the policy, but we don't clap or boo after public comments. So we will move on. Then I see someone raising their hand.
Is the board members' reports part of the agenda? That's part of what I would like to speak to, which is what I thought I put my name down.
Did you sign up, sir? Have you? Okay, great. Then we'll give you your opportunity when we get to that part of the agenda, and you can say what you need to say then. Sir, I'm going to move on in the agenda, and I don't want to have to close this meeting. So if you could please wait until your turn. Yeah. Oh. Correct. And so you're speaking to something, you're signed up here I'll call you when your name comes up, sir. All right, we are going to move on to the next agenda item, which is Dr. Hughes's financial report.
Good evening. So just an update on the audit. Our district annual comprehensive financial report is completed by Polly Roger and submitted to ODE for review on January 3rd. Mr. Roger, the managing partner from the audit company, and his staff are planning to present the audit report to the board at coming regular board meeting. The updates on the budgets document for 23-24. Right now, I'm reaching out to school building and department to schedule meeting with them. I met with Dr. Ludwig talking about the projection on the revenue for fiscal year 23-24. In February, during my meeting with the principal and department director, we're talking about expenditure for the school level and department level. In March, when we have the budget position committee fill up, then I will schedule meeting with budget committee, welcome new member, and to go over the budget process, budget calendar, and how to read the budget document. For general fund financial highlight, as we know that the audit is already complete, so now we have the ending fund balance for fiscal year 21-22 that carry forward to this year is 35.3 million. And that 35.3 million in the audit report, I state very clear reason, and I reported reason to the board in several meetings in few months ago. One of the big saving is the ESSER support that we have. And then the second time is the second saving in this is the adjustment, one-time adjustment from ODE based on the prior year. And last but not least is because last year we have 17 permanent staff that we hired to our district. And with that, we have a one-time saving on staff. So with the 35.3 million that carry forward from 21-22 into 22-23, it gives us the ending fund balance estimate for this year is at 25.3 million, and that is about 21% of the total revenue. Yeah, so that is on the financial general updates. The next item I have is the budget committee.
Just checking because I see people with their mics in their hands. Is it just you're holding it, or did you have questions about that?
I just had a quick question.
Yeah, about that item.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and
okay?
entertain questions if we may about this item before we move on to the next. All right.
Yes.
So thank you for explaining, because I was going to ask what were the causes for this large ending fund balance. But one thing you said just caught me. So you said that we had a huge savings because we hired 17 permanent subs, and that was part of the savings. And so I'm just like, well, can we do that? I think we've done that again this year, but is that what you said, that that's what caused part of the savings was the 17, hiring the 17 permanent subs? Or maybe you can just explain that a little bit more to me.
A combination around our subbing. One, just subbing availability did go down. So the amount that we set aside for subs was not all utilized. So that was some savings. And then by not using that fund, but having the permanent subs in our staffing allocation is where we didn't draw from that account. So you could point to that and see that large savings in that area.
Okay. And that is something we've continued, correct, this year with the permanent subbing?
We have. And I think it's important to note that while we have a large, we've shared this before, a large ending fund balance for this year, Dr. Hughes did include for your report that has a financial outlook that is sobering. And so a large ending fund balance is a strength going into a biennium where the new budget has not yet been set. but we're not as hopeful that it's going to have the kind of increases that K-12 education typically gets. And so we'll be glad to have that ending fund balance as we go into the next biennium. And you'll learn more as we get into that budget forecasting and with the budget committee.
No, and thank you. I did appreciate that you explained, because I wrote the question and then as I was going through the board through board book, I wrote the question, and then the next memo that you wrote was, this is why, can you speak to the benefits of having such a large ending fund balance? And then you explained. So I really appreciate that. The other thing I just wanted to comment on that I just appreciate that you do every year. And I don't know if this happens in other districts, but I want to point it out. Some of you may have heard this, but that you meet with your principals every year to help them go through their budgets, understand their budgets, and work with their budgets. I mean, I think I remember you saying at one point, I wish I could remember the actual quote you said, but that the budget should work for you, something like that. And so I just want to every year give you that appreciation for taking that extra time out of when you could be doing other things to get in our schools, to meet with our principals, to hear their needs, their dreams for their schools, whatever, and work that into the budget. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it really benefits for the principal too, because I feel like if we give them the budget, then they work with the budget. But if we have the principal understand the budget, then we make the budget work for us. So how do we see the picture and how we want to put the funding to support the mission? And yes, it takes time. It takes a whole month and a lot of meetings and talking, but it's really worth it.
I wonder, I don't know. I mean, I stopped when I got my teaching degree, but when you go on and get your admin or whatever, do they give you much education on budget? I mean, how many of our principals have an education on building budgets and such? So I, again, just think that's so helpful that you do that. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And another reminder on the large ending fund balance for 21-22 is, remember we went out for the pension. So we have one side account back in 2004, and then 2021, we went out for the second side account. And with that second side account, it dropped our per rate. But because during that first year, the per rate dropped, but we haven't had the liability to pay the UAL yet. The UAL factor into this year. So that's why in 21-22, we held that extra saving. And in one or two of the board report that I say and explain that information.
Director Taylor, did you have a question?
I did have a question. I had a couple, and I think that I can just roll them all in there for you, Dr. Hughes. First question was on expenditure number 600, which is a category considered other objects. If we look at the year in projected balance versus the working budget, and then you look at the difference, there is a difference between the working budget and the year in projected balance, but there is no number that reflects in the difference. And I just wanted to know why that was 0.
Oh, I think that must be the formula. I did not write it down.
Okay.
I think, yeah, because the difference is the difference between the projected and working budget. So I think I must insert that line item, and then I forgot to write it down on the formula.
Okay.
I will fit that. Thank you.
Okay. And does that actually, it's not a big number, but it is, $500,000. So it may, and then the other question that I had was in expenditure 300 for purchase services. We had a difference of just under $700,000. Was there something that was major between that working budget and the year-end budget that had such an impact on that increase?
Let me look into this and get back to you with the detail, because there is some information in there why the projected look higher than the working budget and the adopted budget by around $700. So let me look into it and get back to you on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my last kind of combo too, there was on revenue item number 1300, we have a difference in on the working budget from the year-end budget of about 98,000.
Yeah.
And is that tied to, was there an increase in students in preschool tuition? Is that, do we have an influx in that K-5 area, or excuse me, that preschool area that allowed us to collect more tuition? And it might correlate to what your search was on the top 6 things for childcare, but with enrollment going down, I was shocked that that number was up.
Well, because when I prepared a budget for the preschool, I was very conservative
Okay.
based on the COVID year. So based on the COVID year, we don't have that much revenue, so that I use frugal, conservative number. And then as of December 31st, the revenue that we receive from preschool is slightly increased. So based on the current revenue that we collected, I project that we will earn more than adopted.
Got you.
Yeah.
And my last one is kind of the sister of that line item, which would be state sources 3,100. There was a difference of working budget from 60 million to 62 million. And it said due to fluctuation in enrollment, we had a $2 million surplus. And again, I was trying to correlate surplus with student enrollment together would be positive versus student enrollment going down and us having a surplus of funds. So
Yeah.
I was just trying to understand that a little better.
Yeah, this state source and Curtis will do the projection for us to see it too. This is combined state school fund, common school fund, and high cost stability.
Okay.
Yeah, so the high cost stabilities is we anticipate to receive more than the projected. The projected are 352,000, but based on the student that we serving, we anticipate to receive 1.6 million.
Okay.
Yeah, so the state school fund, because, you know, when I group the revenue, I have the local source and intermediate and state. So when we say state, it's not only the state school fund, but also other fund in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good question. Thank you so much. And the difference that our director point out is the 600 other object. Just the difference. So the different column will not affect the year-end projected ending fund balance for 22-23.
Okay.
Any other question before I move to other items?
I'm seeing none. Go ahead.
Okay. So the district need to fill 2 budget committee position number 3 and position number 5. These 2 positions expire on June 30th of 2022. This is a 3-year term, and this position need to be filled to serve for the budget year 23-24. The board already declared this vacancy during our last regular board meeting. We have 4 applications, and I believe they are here with us to give the board the opportunity to interview and select.
All right, very good. So just some words about how this process is going to go to my fellow board members. We have 4 applicants for 2 spots. I see several. Will you raise your hand if you're here because you're a budget applicant? Okay, so I see three folks here. Okay, great. Thank you for that. So what we're going to do, I actually consulted with OSBA today just about the process. Yeah, to make sure that the process that we go through as a board and that we put our volunteer budget committee applicants through is one that is fair and transparent and as like gentle and humane as possible too, because it can be a little intense to put your name in and then go through an appointment process. So, and I'll just start by saying, first of all, that we're very thankful that the three of you applied. If Reagan Molitor was still up here on the board, I served for many years with her. She would tell you that the first time she applied to the budget committee, she did not get the appointment, but then she ended up serving 2 terms in the school board. So, you know, we value you, and there's a lot of opportunities to participate, you know, whether you make it onto the committee or not. So the process will be that we have 2 spots to fill, and we have 4 applicants. And so we will invite you up. I'll go in the order of how your applications appear in my board book and ask you to say something if you'd like. And of course, you don't have to come up to the podium, but you're invited to. And then board members, what we'll do after we've had a chance to consider folks' comments and we've read their applications, we're going to write down the 2 people who we will be voting for with our name on it. So it's not anonymous, it's transparent. And then we will hand them to our board secretary, Ms. Douglas, and she will read them out. And the person, if there's a clear 2 winners, then we'll do what's called a motion to appoint. And then someone will just make a motion to appoint those 2 people to the 2 open spots. If there's a tie, then I've got a process in my head for how we'll go about that. So, and before we vote, oftentimes folks like to say something about why they're voting a certain direction. And so we'll still keep that part of the process, but there'll be no pressure to say anything out loud or say why you're voting unless you want to. So that's the process. Hopefully that's clear to everybody, clear as mud, huh? All right. And so we'll just, first of all, with the board members, are there questions about the process before I invite people up? Okay, great. Mr. Dan Shoemaker, please come on up.
Thank you, board. First, I would want to say congratulations on having 4 good candidates. I think that speaks well of our district. And from my standpoint, I trust that wherever you end up voting tonight, that we're going to be well served. So that's great. Just quickly, a little bit about myself. I am a 30+ year resident of the district and a 30+ year educator. In my last 23 years were in the district. And while I live in West Linn and taught math at West Linn High School for 5 years, the rest of my 18 years was pretty evenly distributed between Athey Creek Middle School as a teacher and an administrator, and then Wilsonville High School as a teacher or as an administrator, and then ultimately the principal there. That's where I retired from. I have some familiarity with school budgets, having worked in schools, and I'm a concerned, I shouldn't say concerned so much as an interested citizen, and I understand the importance of volunteering, and I make myself available. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Charles Steele.
Hello, thank you, board, for this fabulous opportunity. My name is Charles Steele. I'm a 32-year member of this community. My family has actually been in West Linn for about 90 years. And there are several members of this community who can probably tell you they were delivered by my grandfather. He was one of the first doctors in the Willamette Valley. It's quite fun. This community is pretty tight. I believe I was in school when Mr. Shoemaker was at West Linn, and I believe I went to school with some of your children. I just want to say, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm interested in being of service to the community, of service to this district. I know the value of how elite our district is and the opportunities that it affords our students. I want to be a member of our budgetary committee so that I can help be of service to our students, of all of our students, of every person who goes to our schools, because I understand the importance of this education. I want to be a part of maintaining West Linn's elite education status. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right, thank you. And just making sure Mr. Steve Buell is not present. Okay, Mr. Kishore Kalu, please come on up.
Hello, good evening, board. Happy New Year. My name is Kishore Kolu. I have lived in Wilsonville for about 22 years, and both of my kids are in the school district. I have a daughter who's in high school, and my son is finishing up middle school. And I want to thank for the opportunity. And I am a software development engineer. I started as a software development engineer, and now I'm a manager at a software company locally. And the reason why I applied is I would like to serve the community and the board, and I want to be a liaison between the community and staff. I have, I'm obviously good at math, but I also look at deeply at things and also at a breadth wise. So I'd like to serve the community. That's my goal, and that's why I'm here. So thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kalu. And with that, I think now we could just take a moment to put our name here, and we can speak to why we're voting if we would like. So while folks are still thinking and waiting, I'm just gonna, because I like to say why I vote a certain way, I just wanna, first of all, thank all three of you, but I have to say that I've known Kishore Kalu since the days that we started Lowry PTA. And so it's just really amazing to see you stay engaged with the community and to be willing to take the next step, you know, here 10 years later from those days. So I'll be voting for you. And also, Charles Steele, I just appreciate the fact that you have educators in your family and you've been in Westland for a long time, and that you know, you have a young kiddo who's going to be theoretically entering into our schools, and so appreciate that lens as well. And just wanted to give an opportunity if anybody else wants to speak to anything before we call the votes.
Yeah, oh no, I'll go ahead and speak just
okay.
because I also wanted to say I had the opportunity to have my students benefit from, I want to call you Mr. Shoemaker, because that's how we refer to you in our home, but benefit at Athey Creek when my oldest daughter was at Athey Creek. And then also he was a principal of my kids at Wilsonville High School. And I had the opportunity when I was the Booster Club president to work with Dan, and just appreciated his dedication to the school and always enjoyed how fun and easy he made my job as Booster Club president and how supportive he was of the parents on that. So just want to say thank you, and you will be receiving my vote.
Okay, checking. I will read aloud the nominations. we do have a tie. We are looking at Chair King nominated Kishore Kalu and Charles Steele. Kirsten Wyatt nominated Dan Shoemaker and Charles Steele. Lewis Taylor nominated Kishore Kalu and Charles Steele. Director Sloop nominated Dan Shoemaker and Kishore Kalu. And Christy Thompson nominated Dan Shoemaker and Kishore Kalu. So we have 4 for Kishore, and we have a tie between Dan and Charles. So we need to have a vote for the second position.
Okay, very good. Would you please go ahead and just give us back our same cards? And then we can, since our names are already on there. So congratulations, Kishore.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
And we'll have a motion in just a moment. And so the next step will be to vote between the 2 gentlemen who are tied for the position, the second position. So we're voting between Dan Shoemaker and Charles Steele. So funny. Trying it kind of this process, we've done it in the past. There's really no like, it's always a little awkward. So this was supposed to make it, less painful, but here we are.
Would you like me to read the votes? Chelsea King voted for Charles Steele. Christy Thompson is Dan Shoemaker. Kirsten Wyatt is Dan Shoemaker. Lewis Taylor is Charles Steele. And Director Sloop is Dan Shoemaker. So it's Dan Shoemaker for 3 votes.
Hey, congratulations. Okay, so the board has expressed their will, and now what we need, though, to make it official is a motion to appoint these 2 applicants to their positions. And it looks to me like I'm just checking the positions that they applied for. It looks like they could do either. Yeah, 3 and 5. So it doesn't matter which one gets what because they both expire at the same time. So motion being entertained.
A motion.
Okay, go ahead.
To nominate, is that the correct word?
To appoint.
To appoint, thank you. A motion to appoint Kishore Kalu, and I apologize if I pronounced that wrong at all, to position 3. And I motion to approve, or to appoint Dan Shoemaker to a position 5.
I'll second.
All right, Vice Chair Thompson with the motion and Director Sleep with the second. Ms. Douglas, will you please call the vote?
Kelly Sloop.
Aye.
Lewis Taylor.
Aye.
Chelsea King.
Aye.
Christy Thompson. And Kirsten Wyatt.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you again to all of you for being willing to go through the process and for being willing to serve. And congratulations. You are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but also no pressure. If you decide that you want to get back to your families, you're welcome to get up and do that as well. And we'll see the 2 of you who got the appointment at the next budget committee. Dr. Sonley Hughes will be in touch with you with next steps. Go ahead, Dr. Ludwig.
Well, I just wanted to come back to the comment that you made at the beginning that when Reagan Molitor first applied for something at the district, she didn't get that committee appointment, but she ended up serving in another capacity. And Mr. Steele, I hope that you will toss your name in the ring again. We will have long-range planning committee openings. We do have school board member openings. And I think what I heard you impassionately say is that you want to find a place to serve in the district. And there will be opportunities, and I hope to see you at this podium again in the near future. So please do apply again. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, very good. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is Dr. Ludwig with the proposed inter-district transfers. Are we doing, I'm just checking with the board. Are we still doing okay without a break? It's been a cut. We're good. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so you have a memo from me about interdistrict transfers. This is for the following school year, 2023-2024. And if it feels a little bit like Groundhog Day, it's because I was here in October asking about interdistrict transfers for this school year. After the school year had gotten up and going, you had a memo. We talked through that process quite extensively. And at that time, I just reminded the board that families may transfer in for a number of reasons. Some of those are statutorily protected. And so if there's a hardship case or a reason around a safe need to transfer or foster care or homelessness, there are other provisions between school districts where students and families can transfer between school districts. That has nothing to do with individual school board members' decisions, but are statutorily protected. So there are transfers that happen all the time. That's why we do have families in our school district that don't reside here, but are allowed to attend here for a number of reasons statutorily required. And then there's the opportunity for the board to, beyond that, to determine if they'd like to open for other transfers. Now, that's always contingent on the residing district where families live releasing those families. So the only way we can approve a transfer in is if that sending school district approves a release. If they don't release those students, then we can't approve that transfer. So there is kind of a safeguard in there where there isn't just there isn't recruiting or floodgates opening. Districts have the ability to restrict students leaving their district. So you can be assured that no one would be coming as a transfer here unless their school district felt it was also in the best interest of their student to have a fresh start, or there was a compelling reason that the two districts felt in those situations it's good for the student, good for the family and the circumstance. So when I came to you in October, I talked about one of the reasons we'd been closed for a number of years, but that one of the reasons we might want to approve a restricted number or where we have space, the ability to say yes to some of those transfers, again, when the sending school district approves it, are for some of those compelling reasons where it is in the best interest of a student or a family. And also increasingly, there's times when we have staff who wish to teach here and may be able to take a position if they can also have their student attend our school district. Now that's also contingent on wherever they reside, their student being released. So there's a few reasons to consider interdistrict transfers. That's when one district allows students to transfer from one district to another. So what you have before you is the policy and a recommendation that now as we look at next school year, because about now families are trying to make decisions about the fall. And you have before you a recommendation from staff to again be open where we have space and capacity and ability. And unlike the memo that we had in October where we said no students for high school, we have proposed for this fall to have a few limited openings, and that would be restricted to 9th grade only. So we would want, if students do want to come here from another school district, we expect them to want to come for their high school career, start in 9th grade, stay through 12th grade, so we have them for all 4 years. It provides consistency for the students, best process for staff to then work with a student for all of their credits and all of their high school experience. And so what you see in this memo that's different than the one you saw in October for the next school year is a few openings then at each of those high schools. So very limited to 9th grade only. In terms of the primary and the middle, we would just be open, contingent on there being space and capacity. So that is the memo, gives you all that information. And then the sample motion is there in front of you to approve this recommendation for next school year. And I'll turn it back over to the board for deliberation.
All right, very good. So we could certainly have a motion first or just go ahead and have discussion? Are you thinking, are you have that queued for a motion?
Yeah, I'm ready to
Okay.
make a motion.
All right, go ahead.
Make it
I
open.
had a question though.
Do you want to ask a question
just got
for the
one
motion
question.
or after?
Huh?
Do you want?
Oh, yeah, we do have the motion.
Okay.
I move to approve the inter-district transfer parameters for the 23-24 school year as presented.
All right, Vice Chair Thompson moves and Director Wyatt has a second, and now we can open for discussion. And yeah, go ahead, Director Taylor.
My only question is, when a student is transferring in from another district and they are released by the current district, does the budget from that district for that child also transfer in? I think it's important for people to understand that. I think if it is true or not true, because I think sometimes we know what we pay in taxes here and it's substantial as residents. And sometimes I think that if you don't understand that budget comes with that child, it can be a turnoff to community members who look at our tax bills, and people coming from maybe lower tax communities are coming in at a reduced cost for a better education, potentially, right? I think that's what we all feel about our community. And so I just want to make sure that the audience understands, or whoever's looking on camera, that budget comes with that also. And it's not a recruiting tool, but it's important to understand that I'm not coming out of pocket more for someone living somewhere else. So can you kind of just, is that true? I mean, that budget comes?
Yeah, you said it exactly perfectly. With every student comes what's called an ADM, or per student amount. And then that can vary though, depending on the student. If they qualify for more services, that qualification, that weighted amount also comes with them. Similarly, if a student leaves from our school district and goes to another public school district, their ADM goes with them. It's not the same for private, but it is between public school districts, public charter schools. The ADM follows the student.
I just want to speak just to the chart that's here in our board book, and then I just do have one question. I remember back, like I said, I was on the board in 2015, and you can see those numbers in that 2016, 2017 academic year, and how high that was, and that was an indicator of where our policy was at that part, where we did allow for more of these inter-district transfers, and we started to taper it, and you can see those numbers dropping, and they're actually, that trajectory has been low because of that policy. And now, here we are again, making a change, responding to, the current situation of our, capacity and what's going on in surrounding districts. So I just, I know you board members have that. And so I just wanted to speak to that. And then my question for you.
Could I speak to that
Of
comment?
course.
I think it's important to remember that what was happening around that time too was a new legislation that was called open enrollment. And that was passed legislatively with the idea of providing more choice to families to choose whatever school district they wanted to go to. And school districts were not allowed to say no. Not allowed to say no to the release or no to the coming in, but they could set a number of how many students they would take in. And so that did create quite a bit of movement between school districts across the state. And for our school district, quite an influx, because the sending school district could not say no to the release. And the idea was to promote families to be able to go to other districts. So it was largely encouraged by legislators at the time and by the state to allow for much more inter-district transfer. As you can imagine, it made it incredibly hard for some school districts around students leaving and enormous budget reductions because of exactly what you pointed out, Director Taylor. Students did leave, and there was some significant impact on some school districts. It ended up that legislation sunsetted and was not renewed by legislators. And so what you see then in the subsequent columns is it went back to sending school districts could refuse to release, and receiving school districts don't have to open at all. or could again choose to take some transfers in. So we will likely not ever see those kinds of high numbers again because we're not in those same conditions. Since you approved transfers this year in October, we've denied 2 transfers and accepted 3. So it hasn't created this huge influx of students that sometimes the community might be worried about one way or the other. But it has allowed for some students who needed that opportunity to have the ability to attend school here. And likewise, we have students who we've allowed to release to other school districts for their compelling reason as well.
Did you have a question or
Yeah,
comment?
and currently, if we have staff members working in our district, they are not allowed to and they're working in our district, but they live in a different district. They have not been allowed to have their children come, correct? And so this will give them that opportunity to have their kids come to our schools as well if they're working in our.
Yeah, I just want to be really careful because they may have their children may have qualified under another statutorily protected reason. So we shouldn't just always assume what we know about one family's story or a student's story. But we have not been open to interdistrict transfers for anyone. Our district does not give preferential treatment to staff, and actually you're not allowed to statutorily, unless you open to everybody. And so because we opened in October to everyone with space availability permitted and capacity permitted, it could give some opportunity for that.
Thank you.
But limited at high school still.
And I think the only question I had was basically that, like, do our students also leave our district and attend districts? And could you speak to that? And also, what are other districts around us doing around this move?
So when I came to you in October, I did do a survey of the other districts in our county, and all of them except for ourselves at the time and Canby had opened for either unlimited a number of students or had created a number at each grade level or different levels, but they had all opened for this school year. So we're not out of the norm. In fact, we were joining the norm. And then we also looked at a few other school districts outside of our county, like Tiger Tualatin and Sherwood, Beaverton, they were all open as well. So we had remain closed, which we had agreed to do as a county during COVID, just because of some of the challenges and the variability of kids being online, in person, and just for some stability. But post-COVID, we've gone back to some of those practices. I anticipate it's going to stay the same. I'm not hearing anything different from other neighboring school districts that they only were going to open for this year and not going forward. I think we're all back to business as usual, which is opening pending space and capacity available in our school districts.
All right. Director Sloop, are you poised for voting or questioning?
In regards to Riverside, where it's allowing up to 15 transfers, is that for space availability?
Because it's an option school, we don't have students already in the middle of kind of their 4-year plan. We anticipate that there could be some more opportunity, at least this first year, and then we'll see. But it's hard for us to say there's no space and capacity at Riverside right now when we just created an open enrollment process. And so we've still selected a conservative number, 15, and we'll see if there are 15 interested. If not, we'll kind of gauge it each year. So.
Yeah, and I think I do actually have one more question, because on point 1 on this memo, I don't see a number. I just see the A, B, and C as far as like the process for which priority is given. Is there a number on this?
You mean for how many students we would, not for primary or middle?
Okay.
It's open depending on, just like in October, depending on space and capacity. And then, but for high school, which we closed this year, stayed closed, we are putting a number. So that's where you'll see 15 for Riverside, 5 for West Linn and 5 for Wilsonville.
So that leads me to believe that it might depend on different schools might have different capacity. And so that A, B, and C will be applied depending on which school the
Correct.
person's applying to, Trillium, Lowry, Sunset,
Correct.
whatever. Yeah.
And that is why we did deny 2 transfers, because the family wanting to come was very specific about a school, a grade level. And we were too high in one of those grade levels that we couldn't accept one of the students, but we could the other, and the family decided not to come at all. So we do have to watch our class sizes.
And Vice Chair Thompson, is this poised for vote or a question?
I'll ask one question.
Okay.
Thank you. And I'm assuming when you talk about grade level and course sizes that across all of our grade schools, it's the same numbers that we look at. Like we want, some schools don't allow, we don't let some schools class sizes get larger than other class sizes. It stays the same in all of our schools.
Yeah, we're monitoring that closely. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I think we're ready for the vote.
Kelly Sloop,
Aye.
Lewis Taylor,
Aye.
Chelsea King,
Aye.
Christy Thompson,
Aye.
Kirsten Wyatt.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. And we will move on to Mr. Killstrom, are you presenting? Awesome. On the 2023-2024 school year calendar. I'll have one less child in my home that year. Yeah.
So good evening, board. Before you, you have the proposed 2023-2024 school calendar for each level here for your consideration. You will note that the first day of school is again scheduled for before Labor Day, which has been this district's practice in recent years, with the first day of August 29th. You'll note that we have the same number of instructional days as we traditionally do at each level, 173 for primary and middle, and then 175 for high school. There are 6 federally recognized holidays within the school calendar. Of course, we have our winter break of our typical length with students their last day of December 17th, returning to school on January 3rd. We have our staff development days built into this calendar, as well as our early release days. You'll note that there are 8 for all grade levels, all levels, and then 12 at the primary level. Of course, we have our primary and middle school conferences built into these calendars, with spring break taking place in the last week of March. And then our last day of school would be scheduled pending inclement weather days or closures due to unforeseen circumstances of June 11th. And then the last thing I would note is that you'll notice it's a slightly different format than years past, and that is following feedback from our community, from our staff. We wanted to simplify the calendar a little bit, make it a little easier to read, knowing that families are most interested in, is there school today or is there not? So happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, so I think we're in the same position where we could go ahead and get a motion in a second and then see if there's discussion.
Approve the proposed 2023-2024 school calendar as presented.
I'll second.
All right, Director Wyatt, thanks for the motion, and Vice Chair Thompson for the second. And are there questions or?
I guess the only thing is this thing has been cross-checked across to make sure that we're not going to infringe upon any cultural holidays or things of the sort that maybe we might not be aware of or something. It's been cross-checked is what I'm asking.
So that's not in a board policy, but so this is the calendar in front of you. And we can only account for in our board policy for federal holidays according to our policy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I noticed the new format. I think I'll just say two things and then I'm going to vote in favor of this. One is that the professional development day, like I see that we're straddling, like it's an early release. It's also professional development. It's, that's why we do the early releases. So our staff can come together and learn about adopting, how to apply new curriculum or instructional practices. So I just wanted to say that. And then also for the community, just really being dialed into the last day of school might change. We've got the last day of school, but then if we have snow days, that means 6th or 8th grade promotion ceremonies and things like that can change. So just, that's always an ongoing calendar discussion as well. So if there's no further comments, I think we can take a vote.
Kelly Sloop,
Aye.
Lois Taylor,
Aye.
Chelsea King,
Aye.
Christy Thompson. Aye. Kirsten Wyatt.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Killstrom. And checking in with the board, are we good? You want a break? Yeah, you bet. So we'll take a brief recess and then be back in like 5 to 7 minutes as soon as everybody else is seated here again. All right. My mic is on. Yeah, I did. I tapped the, yeah. All right, thank you. All right, great to hear everybody enjoying some socializing, and we did so good the first part, and we'll just settle back into being present for our work here. And the next item is public comment from residents and also those that are not directly related to the anything on the agenda. So what we'll do is I'll call forward the names on for folks that are residents and are speaking to items that are on the agenda. And I'll just ask to confirm that you are a resident. And then we will move on to non-resident, or then we'll move on to, we have someone online who is a resident and who is speaking to something that's not on the agenda. So per our process, I'll go to that person after the folks who are here. Yeah. And then the people who are from out of the district will then go after him. So if I forget that, feel free to remind me. Okay, great. Okay, so I'll read our practices here. And we do these to foster a climate of understanding and safety and security. So thank you for taking time to be here to share with us your voice and take part in informing us of your opinions, thoughts, and recommendations regarding district action. If you wish to make a public comment, we already did that. This is a time where we listen and collect information from you. So that's why we don't normally engage. And that's why often, I don't usually even respond to folks who raise their hand. And so it's an opportunity really for us to listen. It's not an opportunity for dialogue or discourse, but know that we are listening. And if you are asking for specific information, then just make that clear. What is the specific information that you're asking for so someone can follow up with you? This is not an opportunity to single out an individual district employee or student. We have a separate complaint process that is used if you want to single out an individual. So if folks are being named and things of that nature, then I might need to interrupt you and ask you to follow a different process rather than naming individuals and complaining about them. This is a chance for you to address us as your school board, not to address a larger audience that exists outside of the boardroom. So with that, we don't clap or boo. It's to keep a certain decorum inside this space, much like what we would ask our classrooms to be like. We wouldn't want students to be booed and things like that. So that's what we follow here. You get 3 minutes Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. The handy timer might feel kind of like pressure, but it's actually just to help you know that it's time to wrap it up when you see yourself getting close to that end of the 3 minutes, because I do have to apply the practices even-handedly, which means I'm forced to interrupt you if you keep going. And we have 45 minutes for public comment, and it is all aggregated. So the folks, the gentleman who went first did use 3 minutes, and we'll just continue to move forward our process, counting those 45 minutes. And let's see here. I think that is it. You can always write us. We have an inbox where we read your emails, and so that's also an avenue to get our attention. So I think I nailed all those things, and I'll start calling folks up with Kara Clark. And I assume Oregon City Boulevard is in the district?
It is in Westland.
Yep,
yes.
great.
It's very confusing. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Kara Clark, and I have 2 elementary age kids in Linn-Wilsonville School District. I never thought I'd be in a position where I need to stand before you to beg for a school district to teach all children to read. As a parent, this seems like the bare minimum requirements of schools. The Linn-Wilsonville district prides themselves on creating inclusive and equitable learning communities. We have a plan that focuses on school culture, environment, and behavior. However, there is no mention of curriculum and methodologies to ensure equal education opportunities to everyone. If the curriculum is not effective enough to allow 44% of children to read at grade level, that should be a call to action. Our universal curriculum should have the goal of being effective enough to have 95% of children successful, if not 100. By remaining complacent in our reading scores over the last 20 years, we are setting a precedent of low expectations and saying that we no longer expect our kids to read. 75% of kids who are not proficient in reading by the 3rd grade will never catch up. These children are at risk of not graduating from high school, high unemployment, and rates of incarceration. Looking at Oregon, we know that children from lower socioeconomic backgrounds and minority populations are suffering from even lower levels of proficiency across the state. I think it is time to start talking about how we are going to ensure true inclusivity and equity. I am not going to try to convince you about the benefits of the science of reading today. There is no argument against the science of reading. The research is there. The science is there. The evidence is there. What we have is an action gap. We cannot fully address diversity, equity, and inclusion without adopting a curriculum that can also guarantee those same rights to literacy. We need to focus on our K-5 curriculum adoption on ensuring equal access to literacy by moving to scientifically proven methods and leaving behind the old cultural ideas and theories about education that have not served our children well. Our district cannot make progress without a strong and brave administration that is willing to do the hard work. We are asking for courageous and respectful conversations. And I'm hoping someone in this room will take action and be my hero in this story. We have been complacent and low expectations for too long, and children have paid the price. And I just want to say personally that I have another child who will be entering the school district in 2 years, and I have to make the decision if I want and trust you with my 3rd child. And at this point in time, I would do anything if I had the money to put all of my kids in the schools outside this district. Thank you.
Point of order, and all the other speakers.
So, Kara Clark. Oh, sir, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to take comments from the audience. Sir, if you, I will gavel close this meeting if I continue to get clapping or comments from the audience. This is a meeting for the school board of the directors, and we are the ones who do the points of order. Thank you, Kara Clark. We will move on to Trisha Britton.
Good evening, Superintendent Ludwig and board members, and thank you for your time. We are here in our third month with a consistent message and a solid foundation. 1, create a policy for reviewing books prior to purchasing and placing them in district libraries. 2, create an oversight committee for library books with both administrators and parents. And 3, remove the explicit books that have been found in school libraries. Our reasons for these requests are simple. It's not a myth that children's innocence should be protected. Stop exposing children to unnecessary, uneducational, sexual books and protect them from harm and potential triggers. As you've already been told, a sexually abused sixth grader was given one of these books by an older student, and no, it didn't sit quietly on the shelves. Breaking down the natural walls that children are supposed to have is what sexual abusers do. Having these books available to children is not natural, and it's not inspiring, it's not beautiful, and it's nothing to laugh out loud about. And it's certainly not a coming of age issue that children need to be seen in porn. The impact of adult sexual content on children can bring lifelong damage, trauma, and can be irreversible. And by the way, sexual abusers do not accept accountability, nor do they care about what impact they are having on a child. Just a thought to consider. District leaders and administration have stated one reason to keep these sexually explicit books in libraries, and it's because of literacy. So pornographic books are literacy. Well, then that may explain why 44% of West Linn-Wilsonville third graders are not meeting state grade level benchmarks for reading, and West Linn-Wilsonville is using unscientific and failed reading curriculum. Foundationally, this is about parents and community members expressing concern over district leadership and the well-being of their children. They're asking to remove obscene and pornographic books that remain in your district libraries. It's pretty simple. According to the State Library of Oregon State and Development Services, the book Gender Queer has been removed from several Oregon libraries. Now, while this book is not in our district libraries, it's the same source that you use, the American Library Association, and they gave this book a positive review, similar to all 9 books in question. This goes to prove that these resources you are using are not reliable, but one resource that has stood the test of time to be most reliable for what is important for their child is a parent. Your current review process for formal complaints consists of a full review of the book rather than out of context passages. How many sentences, pages, or paragraphs of inappropriate sexual content are you going to consider before it's out of context? When is it ever going to be considered in context and part of the story? Here's an easy calculation. There should be 0 sentences, pages, or paragraphs available in public school libraries referencing sucking dick, eating pussy, teen boys jacking off into Mountain Dew bottles and drinking their cum, watching dad's porno videos, dry humping, repeatedly using the F word, referencing teen boys' penises as lunch, speaking of rape as if it's sensual and casual, and images of naked women with their legs spread open, fingering herself while saying, "I want to honeymoon myself." Don't make this hard. Remove these books. Thank you.
All right, Julie Frazier.
Hi, I'm Julie Frazier, and I'm a resident of West Linn. I had a statement planned until a friend of mine sent me a blog post a couple of days ago that I felt was more relevant. I have handed you a copy of this blog post by Timothy Shanahan, who's a distinguished professor emeritus at the University of Illinois at Chicago. I'm going to share an argument that stirs up the most emotion in me when considering foundational reading skills. Shanahan writes his thoughts on the statement, "There are many ways to teach reading." While many of the critics have been willing to concede the value of explicit decoding instruction, others seem to defend its neglect. Their claim is that this reporting is off base since there are many ways to teach reading. In other words, in their opinion, teaching 3Qing is as effective as teaching phonics, and either choice is equally supportable. Those arguments may appear to deserve 4 stars for affability and reasonability, but only if you're willing to ignore the research. Studies show that explicit phonemic awareness and phonics instruction consistently provide a learning advantage. There are no such studies supporting 3Qing. Studies show that activation of visual and phonological centers in the brain when word reading. They don't reveal similar activation, and that would suggest 3Qing. Readers do sometimes guess words. There could be damaged pages, reader distraction, lack of decoding ability, but this is more evident with poor readers than good ones. Usually we strive to teach students to emulate proficiency. I want my kids to try to golf like Tiger Woods, not some old duffer who can't even get on the green. 3Qing is the only instance I can think of that asks students to parrot low success performance rather than proficiency. There are many ways to teach reading. It is sophistry, however, to pretend that these ways are all equal. Phonics provides a clear advantage. To those who claim that we need different styles of teaching decoding, example pictures, and context, since all children are different, show me the research. Until such research is available, I'm willing to follow this claim to its logical conclusion. Let's say that I'm willing to entertain the idea that all children learn differently. If that is the case, then why aren't these critics up in arms about programs that omit or minimize phonics, even that research has found such omissions to be especially harmful to our most vulnerable children? All children deserve to learn how to read. Thank you.
All right, Christine Garcia.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Christine Garcia. I live in Wilsonville and I have a child at Lowry Primary School. I've watched board meetings virtually in the past, but given recent topics and public comments, I feel the need to be more of an active participant. I would like to briefly speak to some of the concerns presented by the Oregon Moms Union and other members of the community. Attacking our librarians and school board members over the presence of several award-winning books in our school is not where we should be spending our time and energy. Many comments were made at the last meeting about wanting to keep politics out of school, yet these complaints seem increasingly political. To address the most specific issue of suggesting we ban books due to them being pornographic, the definition that was shared at the last meeting kind of glossed over the fact that an item is considered pornographic if it is meant to incite arousal or intended to cause sexual excitement. Just because a book contains content regarding rape, sexual abuse, nudity, masturbation, sex, or LGBTQ+ relationships does not mean that that material is intended to incite arousal. You may consider these books too graphic for your children, but not everyone feels the same, and that does not make it illegal. The Oregon Moms Union posted a quote following a children's book drive that read, "Because readers today make leaders tomorrow," yet they're trying to ban books. Books which are not required reading, but simply available. Also, I think it's naive to assume that these books are going to be some sort of shocking and corrupting influence on our kids when a good many of them will already be sexually active by the end of high school, statistically around 35 to 40% by age 18. Let's try to refocus on what we can do to actually make a difference in our kids' education. I think that working together with our school board, teachers, and educational partners to catch up our kids and create equitable learning opportunities is incredibly important right now. Telling our librarians and school board members that doing their jobs is illegal and that they don't care about our children is not helping our kids or improving our learning experience. Since it is actually School Board Appreciation Month, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the school board members for your hard work for our district and for their patience and grace in listening to our community. You have sacrificed your time with your own families to serve, and that does not go unnoticed. As the current PTA president at Lowry Primary, I've spent a lot of time this year connecting with our teachers, school counselors, principal, and the Family Empowerment Center. Believe me when I say they all want the best for our kids and just need our support. Let's do that and spend more time listening to them, please. We have work to do.
Lawrence Nelson.
Thank you. I want to first apologize. I misunderstood the way the curriculum was to, or the agenda was to be running, and that's why I raised my hand and interjected. I'm here today as a practicing physician, neurologist who's cared for brain injured patients for the last 40 years. And what we know about brain injury or concussion, as it's more late termed called, is that you can be concussed physically, mentally, emotionally, and it will have a very similar effect on the brain and on our central nervous system, our immune system, all of which detract from our ability to be and become totally who we are designed to become. Interference such as things that would cause confusion in children actually cause concussion or brain injury to those children. And it's been shown time and time again, consequences in reading, consequences in behavior, consequences in difficulty in maintaining social relationships. And what I'm hearing today is that you are proposing to continue to concuss these children with these, what I feel are outlandish, unsubstantiated, undocumented, peer-reviewed scientific documentation that is serving another agenda other than the best interests of our children. Now, I have met a number of you, and I'm going to speak to you as well, because we formerly did have the opportunity to see who was speaking to us. But this is going to continue to damage the psyches of our children and interfere with the growth and productivity of these kids as they continue to age. As I was a couple of years ago, started to understand.
Sir, could you please follow the process that we left?
I am
forward? Would
following
you-
the process. Don't interrupt. My time is
That
at hand here, please. You've interrupted me and been rude, and now I'd like to speak my mind. You want to stop it?
Yeah, and if you could speak to us.
I'm speaking to the whole crowd, and you've taken away the opportunity for the rest of us to see one another, and that's not okay. So I will do as I had. Thank you. And I have one more minute left. I took time to go and.
Sir, you are not following our process, which is that you are here to speak to us. So if you
You know,
would
I
like
don't need
to
the microphone, and I
continue,
don't need to do this.
then you can speak to us, or I can
I
close
am
this meeting.
speaking to you.
Okay,
You
very
can't
good.
hear me right now?
Yeah. All right, sir, I'm going to call a recess so we can reconvene in a more dignified fashion. I'm going to open this meeting back up. And I have a couple board members up here who'd like to say something.
Well, I just want to say, I think many of you I've seen many times, and I think that I've always voted to extend public comment 100% of the time. And I love to hear all of you, whether I agree with you or I don't. It actually helps me to learn things that I didn't learn, which is how I ended up at Edison, talking to other directors and board members about things that I wasn't aware of. So I do know that it was brought to my attention that you did used to be on the screen. And if you remember, one of the things that Chair King said as a part of board policy and etiquette was that this is not an opportunity for you to grandstand or talk to the community. And what ends up happening, whether I agree with it or I don't care if you hold up a sign personally, it's not me. But the rule is you don't get to grandstand. So when you hold up signs, you have community members who are sitting at home seeing those signs. And so that's a form of grandstanding, which is why they removed the ability to see the speaker. So you can't see the speaker because of your behavior and your actions. And so if you could just simply follow the rule on not grandstanding, you can be up on the screen. I've been called out for my behavior or facial expression or having a hot mic. And so I know what it feels like for that community to say something, because I am held to the same standard that we are asking you to be held to. And they can look at you and tell you, I've had to apologize. Okay. So I'm no different than you. So if you want everybody to speak, if you want us to continue to have grace and extend time, all we're asking for is if you could just keep a little bit of order and be an example of how you would want someone to extend that grace back to you. So I asked if we could put the speaker back up on the screen, but we can't do that if we're going to have signs and people at home are going to be calling in and complaining. Does that make sense? So.
All right. We're not gonna.
I'm just giving you
Yeah.
an opportunity to have people be on the screen. What
Okay.
you do with that information from this point forward will be on you. I am not the chair. I have no control over what this chair decides to do. So if she shuts the meeting down, you had an opportunity. Okay. I'm trying to help you.
All right.
Because I want to
Director
hear you.
Taylor,
Thank you.
And I know Vice Chair Thompson wants to say something.
Yeah, I was just gonna, you know, we do put these policies in place and we do them because we want to hear what you have to say. And we feel like these policies give us that best opportunity. And as Director Taylor said, all of you here know that I have always motioned to hear what you have to say. And I'm willing to stay here until 2 and 3 in the morning because I do care. That is why I'm on this board and that is why I spend so much time in this work. But there are things that we have to have policies for out of fairness for everybody and just to make sure that things go as they do. And so one of those policies is that the public comment time is for addressing the board and not the audience. So that's just that reminder that we do want you speaking to us. And you know, whether that's a good policy or not, we do need to abide by these policies or we change them. But if we allow someone not to abide by the policy, then it becomes the slippery slope of, well, we let you, but not them. And so anyway, just out of fairness, and just know each one of us are up here because we do care. I mean, I take every email that you write to me personally. I read every word you write to us. I know we all do. And I really do care. And I really do want to hear. And I don't ever want to not have the opportunity to listen to all of you. I hope you know that. And I hope that that has been demonstrated. So, you know, if you could just abide by this, then we don't have to go through that. So, thank you.
I'm sorry, but we are not going to be taking comments from the audience. This is a school board meeting. It is for the board of directors. If I get one more hollering out from this audience, I will close this meeting. You just had every 3 board members, that is a quorum, tell you to follow these practices. Let's try this again. Next time I use this gavel, it is to close this meeting. Lawrence Nelson, you have 1 minute and 4 seconds.
Thank you. In listening to Ms. Wyatt's comments during the director meeting, I was with you 100% all the way up to where there would never be a book removed from your library. And yet here's a book called Gender, and I'll read you. Gender is like outer space because there are as many ways to be different genders as there are stars in the sky. Each person is different, and that is cool. Well, that's not science. That's not genetics. That's not anything I know about medicine. And if this is a book that you would not remove, that concerns me greatly. I will close with this. Whoever shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it would be better for him that a millstone was hanged about his neck and that he was drowned in the depths of the sea. Thank you.
So another thing I just want to remind everybody of is the fact that I'm not singling out individuals. And not only does that refer to students and to our staff members, but it also does refer to my fellow board members as well. Thank you.
Karen Salvetti.
Those are part, I don't want this to take my time. Kelly, those are for this. Well, my name is Karen Salvetti, and I live here in West Linn, and I'm pretty new to the district. We just moved here in July. I have spoken at this, my 3rd board meeting. I have filed 1 formal complaint before that Kelly hung on to from October until I think almost December. So that is why I wanted to present this one in person so that everybody was here and aware that I am turning in a formal written complaint and it is going to everybody at the same time. So my complaint is not one against a specific individual in the district, but one against the absence of a policy in the district. I'm asking for a constant committee to create policy and procedure for books and then to review the books that we currently have and future books. About book banning as it seems to be portrayed, It is about guiding children's education. Our public schools are not here to guide children's or adults' sexual desires and foul language. Our school libraries should not be where they go to find these topics. There are public libraries and Amazon if student and parents find those book topics appropriate within their homes. I appreciate the review board for the 8 books, or maybe 9, I think it was 8 said about that have been presented to you. But we need to review the books before they get in our children's hands, not after. My daughter is one that has a restriction on her account, and one of the books of the complaint ended up in her hand by another student who doesn't have a restriction on their account. Currently, the only thing that is in process or policy for choosing books in our school libraries is the school librarian. The librarians place an emphasis on reviews from School Library Journal and Common Sense Media. I tried looking up 2 books that have been in discussion lately at district meetings on these 2 websites just to see what the reviews were. The book Milk and Honey did not show up on either website. The book Heartstopper Volume 2 did not come up on Common Sense Media, but was shown on the School Library Journal site. This site had no parent reviews. The only review was of a woman with an MA in popular culture, studying online fandom, and was previously webmaster for DC Comments. I'm not sure how this qualifies her to choose books for our children. Our schools do have policies in place regarding what students can wear, words students can use, and displays of affection students can do. Specifically, we ask that clothing not display images or words that are inappropriate for a school environment. Rosemont Ridge also says affectionate physical contact is not appropriate for the workplace and middle school. This includes hand holding, hugging, and kissing. You cannot use vulgar language on the bus. While I appreciate these policies that are written, and I'm happy to see them, those policies are complete opposite from the books that are being chosen by our school librarians. These books are full of words that are inappropriate, full of wildly inappropriate affectionate physical contact, way beyond hugging and kissing, and wildly nasty vulgar language. So the students can't wear it on their shirt, but they can read it in their books. Thank you.
Freya Lee.
Hello. I live in the area. I was asked by a group of parents to come and speak. I've been seeing what's been happening in Oregon for a long time. I am a transsexual woman that is also homosexual, as in I have relationships with the same sex by biological sex standards. What's happening in today's schools is a gross overcorrection, completely and utterly. If parents want to buy their children these books, that's one thing, but that's also a different conversation. Having them available in the school is an overcorrection. If the kids want to buy them themselves and raise the money, that's fine, as long as they're within the right age limit to do that. Schools should be more focused on education, math, literacy, recognizing manipulative behaviors, coding, as in computer coding, C++, whatnot, trying to help kids for the future. And maybe even change a tire and bounce a checkbook. How many people I've seen that couldn't change their own tire when they get stranded? We're not teaching kids how to actually function in today's society. We're not. In a previous meeting, we mentioned in a previous meeting, parents can have their kids barred from reading these books or checking these books out. What policy is in place to prevent those kids from handing them over and having another kid just circumvent your entire system? It doesn't need to be in schools. Gender ideology and queer theory do not need to be in schools at all. As a homosexual, transsexual, I can assure you LGBTQ kids will self-identify in spite of others. Just be accepting of them and compassionate. Educate them no differently than you would any other student. Why is characters in children's books, or why is it that characters in children's books can't just be normal characters that happen to be gay? Why do they have to show them how gay they really are? It makes no point to me. I'm not asking for that. I know these parents aren't either. Let alone all the information, the LGBTQ community that gets pushed, gender ideology is nonsensical. And it drives me crazy that we have these unrealistic, unbased informations going out. Tell me, you guys are educators. What is sex? Is it about karyotype? It's not. It's about gamete pathways in the SRY gene. Has nothing to do with that. It's about gametes. What's in between a sperm and an egg? Because a speg is just a fertilized egg. There is no third gender. As somebody with a DSD or disorder of sexual development, I'm aware. Thank you.
Dean Sir.
Good evening, Chair King and board members. My name is Dean Sir. I'm from West Linn, and I'm here to speak to you about the Oppenlander Fields sales situation. The ask is to close the Oppenlander transaction per the sales agreement and do it now. I'm president of the Friends of Oppenlander. It's the organization and the gathering of thousands, 2,500 by name and 6,600 by, or 66% of the voters at the last bond measure that are in support of this transaction concluding, where the property is transferred, sold to the city of West Linn. The district, to my knowledge, to our knowledge, has not negotiated in good faith. Your December $6.5 million or nothing response to the city's December offer of a do-over on the appraisal and accusing the city of swindling the taxpayers, which is us, all of us in this room, is wrong and unacceptable. And some have told me that it's arrogant. We see the district working behind the scenes trying to find a legal technicality to prevail in your lawsuit. Starting tonight, we intend to shine an ever-increasing bright light of public awareness and engagement on your actions. We're investigating filing an amicus brief so that the court clearly understands the concerns and interests of the citizens as they look at the summary judgment and if there's no settlement heading off into trial mid-year. The West Linn taxpayers are your constituents, and so are the Wilsonville taxpayers. West Linn residents, as I said earlier, voted 66.57%, 2-1, exactly 2-1, in favor with our checkbooks of paying for that property. We're not just saying we want, we're actually putting our checkbooks out with that. Wilsonville residents, who some have said have the most to lose in this transaction, they're your constituents as well. And they should be concerned that if West Linn is being treated this way, that eventually at some point this may happen to them as well. No matter whose name is on the property, Oppenlander is owned for the benefit of the public. West Linn has a history of supporting every school bond measure. If the board, quote, stiffs the public by not selling Oppenlander to the city per the contract that you all agreed to and signed, we, the voters, will remember and likely actively campaign against the next school bond. We also may campaign against board members expecting to return to their seats, depending upon how that transaction turns out. No matter whose name is on the property, Oppenlander is owned by the taxpayers and the citizens. You're caretakers of that property. We understand the process of investing in property and selling excess property, but you have signed a contract to sell that property, and this is within the bounds of that. We don't believe the school district is acting in good faith, and we hold you to a higher standard because you're in the education side of this equation. We expect you to set a good example for our students. I see one young lady in the back. If I had more time, I would explain to her in very succinct terms that basically you made a promise and you're walking away from that promise. And the lawyers may be satisfied with why you're doing that, but we want you to complete that transaction. We're going to keep the attention on that. Thank you.
Gregory Novak. We're not clapping. Clapping or booing after people give comments in this boardroom. Thank you. Gregory Novak.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I'm also here to talk about the Oppenlander Field situation. I'm a 19-year resident of West Linn. My family, well, my mother, my children, I moved here in 2004, and we chose West Linn over a lot of places we looked. We literally looked for 6 months in the greater Portland metro area for home. We chose West Linn for a number of reasons. One of them was the quality of the schools and their reputation. The other one was the quality of the lifestyle and the fact that it differed from communities like Beaverton and Tigard and Clackamas, and that it didn't have, you know, every square foot of its land consumed by homes. The traffic was much more manageable. It was much quieter in the nighttime hours. And these are all reasons why, I think West Linn shines as a place to live in the greater Portland metro area. When I think about Oppenlander Field, which I've known, since we moved here, I actually coached my son's soccer team there for years. That is not, in my mind, a piece of land that the school district should be looking at as an opportunity to sell to a developer for the highest market price. And it's also my understanding that that was never the premise of how that land ended up in school district hands. My understanding is the Oppenlander family granted it to school district as a contingency piece of real estate in case there was a school needed to be placed there. And my understanding of the contract and all the events that led up to where we are today was that the school and the city, and obviously by the bond vote, that the residents, who should have the loudest vote, had agreed that that should become a park and it should be permanently preserved in that status. My more recent understanding is that the board is now saying, no, we don't want to honor the contract that was the premise for the vote last year. And we want $8.5 million for that land, which everyone has agreed going back a year ago is nowhere near its value as parklands. So my public comment is that the school district should be looking at this under the original premise that the land was put there, and they should be reflecting on what's good for the community and the kids that live in the community. I can tell you that 8 years ago, it was difficult to get practice facilities for the soccer team and the baseball teams. We often had to practice late into the dark because we couldn't get time slots to allow the kids to practice earlier. That was 8 years ago. The population has clearly gone up and there's less open land today than there was. So my ask is that we looked at what's good for the long-term community. We try to keep West Linn the place that it was that has brought people here, and that the school district honor the spirit of that at whatever number you end up selling the land. Thank you.
Richard Ellis.
Hello, I live in West Linn. I've lived there about 20 years now. And I just recently heard about the Oppenlander change in direction. And I just want to say that, I think the voters clearly let their will be known in May. You made a commitment and now you're trying to renegotiate. And I find it very frustrating that there's also the possibility that this renegotiation could lead the property to a private purchase, more house developments. And I just really feel that you made a commitment and that you should follow that commitment. Thank you.
Michael Snook.
Hello, thank you. My name is Michael. I'm in West Linn, got a daughter in high school there. What I wanted to talk about today was this recently issued guidance supporting gender expansive students. This came out last Thursday from the Oregon Department of Education. Reading through it, there's a section in here that's kind of concerning to me. It's on page 14, section 1D, and this is what it says. To the extent possible, schools should refrain from revealing information about a student's gender identity, even to parents, caregivers, and other school administrators without permission from the student. And it goes on to say down below, school districts should work closely with the student and, if appropriate, the student's parent or caregiver in devising a supportive plan regarding the confidentiality of the student's gender identity. And so I guess what I would ask the board to think about is some sort of maybe a policy on how you're going to deal with that. As a parent, what I would like to know is, are the administrators, the teachers, and the counselors of the school district going to willfully withhold information about children from their parents? I think it's a pretty easy yes or no question. And I'd like to have some guidance on that as a parent. And I'm sure future parents would also like to know, is the school district I'm going to enroll my kid, are the administrators, teachers, counselors going to willfully withhold information from me as a parent? And here it says, well, it'll be on a case-by-case basis. I think that's kind of a cop-out. I think that it's a pretty easy yes or no question. Either the school district's going to withhold information from parents or not. And so I'd just ask you to consider that. I know this is new, but just something that I would, as a parent, like some guidance on. So thank you.
All right, that closes the portion where folks who live in the district and are present and are not speaking to an agenda item have an opportunity to address the board. And I know we have someone coming in remotely, and I assume they understand the practices and listened to it. So I'm looking at you, Curtis, to bring them in. I do believe it's just audio and no video when coming in remotely. Yeah.
Whose name did you call? Can you hear me?
Sorry, Curtis, I can't hear you.
My name isn't Curtis.
Okay, there you are, Dale Blanchard. Go ahead. You're on. Go ahead. And you're a resident of West Linn, I believe?
Yes, that's right. For the record, my name's Dale Blanchard. I live in West Linn. I've lived in the Willamette Valley my entire life, in West Linn for the last 35 years. Both of my kids attended K through 12 in our public schools and graduated from West Linn High School. Regarding the Oppenlander property, I am disappointed. I'm frustrated. I thought we had already figured this out. We had a written sales agreement for a negotiated compromise price. We passed a bond measure to cover the cost. Now I'm not sure what. The district backed out of the deal and filed a lawsuit against the city. I don't know. I just want to cover a few points in the time that I have. One, you are not running a for-profit corporation. The school district is a local government entity that serves the public, the people who live here. Your mission is to provide an education system, or what you call a learning community, for our kids. The people who live here, the people who elected you to represent us and provide guidance to this local government agency. Next, we already own this property. The district purchased the property in 1973 at a cost of $40,000. At that point in time, the residents of West Linn made up a little over 80% of the district's population. I might make the argument that the city of West Linn already owns all but 19% of this property. Anyway, it's the height of absurdity to be fighting to buy this park that we already bought a long time ago. Finally, we, the people who live here, the residents who elected you to represent us, we want this open space to remain a park and recreation facility forever. Somewhere the kids can play sports, the dogs can run, the neighbors can walk and talk. The last thing we need in West Linn is some more huge houses too close to each other. I thought we had this figured out. You're not leading a for-profit corporation. Please complete the sale according to the agreement we already arranged. Maybe even put it on the agenda for your next meeting. Thank you.
All right, that concludes the folks who signed up for virtual comment. And I'm being told we have another person who's a citizen of West Linn-Wilsonville resident who is adding their name to folks speaking to items not on the agenda. So I'll wait for that one. And if you wrote your name down, then you're the person. Come on up and state your name and get your 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Jackson. This is all new to me. And watching what you guys have been through in this process, before I would honor you, having to hear what you have to hear from your constituents. Yeah. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so nervous. I've never done this before. So I'm a 30-year resident of West Linn. I raised my children there. Even before I had children, I always valued education and always voted for your bonds. And Oppenlander was always such a special place for us once I had children, because they played soccer there. We had picnics there. We flied kites there. And I know emotion is not what you want to hear. You want to hear facts. But what I know is that what is value? Is value money? Or is value what is served to the community? And I know this field serves so much to the community. And I understand the school board needs to have land banking. They need to have money to then provide schools for the generations to come. I understand that, but this park adds so much value to the community with open space, just memories. There's a baseball field that I used to curse at because they made traffic be a problem sometimes. But now I understand that those kids truly love that field, and people from all over come over to play on that field. And so that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from, there's value in terms of monetary gains, which I don't understand the whole, city stuff and everything you're going through, because 120,000 was like totally unacceptable. I totally don't accept that at all. I want to give you more money. But at the same time, I would like to think that you guys would understand where we as citizens of Westlands are coming from, that have used that open space and want to work with you. And all I'm imploring you to do is work with the city of Westland to come up with a really good deal that benefits you, but also benefits us of Westland that truly loves that open space and everything it has provided us for all the years that it's been there. So I'm sorry I'm being emotional, but I'm just truly speaking from the heart. I just really want you to understand that I want you to work together with the city of Westland to come together with a good plan that benefits everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that concludes the portion of people who live in the district. Yep. Okay. And we will move on to people who do not live in the district and who are not speaking to an item on the agenda. Marissa Dipper.
Good evening. My name is Marissa Deppner, and I graduated from Cambia High School last year in June of 2022. I want to start telling you a little bit about myself. At the age of 13, I was adopted and moved to this area. My past is very traumatic and is filled with sexual, emotional, and physical abuse. I was rejected by many families when the state of Oregon looked for a family to adopt me. I was truly a ward of the state and was with no biological parents alive. I endured years of abuse from my father, so much that I thank God every day that I'm here to speak about it. My prayer is to help to advocate for other children through my experiences while providing some insight to parents, teachers, and my community. I think the most important thing for you to understand is that students like myself never know exactly what may trigger us. I've been on a 504 plan that allowed for some much needed emotional support and guidance for teachers and staff. Today, I want to walk you through a day in the school that I pick up a book like Milk and Honey or Handmaid's Tale, the graphic novel. First, I have seen some quotes on social media and all the excitement over the book Milk and Honey. The title seems harmless, so why would a teen like myself choose to check it out? I thought the name sounded sweet and kind. Please understand that when I pick up a book like this and start to realize what it's actually about, I start to panic. For example, when I first look at the book and see a picture referencing rape, the quote is, "Our knees pried open by cousins and uncles and men, our bodies touched by all the wrong people, that even in a bed full of safety, we are afraid." I begin to feel uncomfortable and I'm reminded of my father and stepbrother's abuse. I begin to shut down. This means I freeze, I begin to cry, I start having flashbacks of my abuse, and then I move into a full-blown panic attack. I am completely embarrassed because I have to get up in the middle of class and ask to be excused. I cannot breathe, and I have to call my mom at the end of the day to come and get me. Some adults may be able to relate more positively and reflect on their healing, but for younger students, whether we like to admit it or not, We are not fully capable of understanding or processing trauma or what we have gone through at this age. It is very important that we consider all kids when allowing books in the library. Schools used to be my safe place. My teacher, the one who called DHS, and I was finally removed from my abusive home, that was my safe place. Students should be able to relax and go to school and be free from potential triggers related to sex. A public school is not a place where students like myself can feel safe any longer. I don't want to be reminded of my trauma by simply checking out a book where the title seems innocent. Lastly, have not I condemned thee? Be strong and have good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with us wherever thou go. Joshua 1:9. Thank you.
Colleen Hamilton.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I may not be a member of the school district, but I only live about 12 minutes away in Oregon City. I work with a lot of Clackamas County school districts, parent groups, and community, because what we're seeing with books in the libraries is not, as Marissa just told us, of comfort for children. It's abuse, it's ugly, and it should not be in the schools. I don't know whether you believe this or not, but the sex made by God is beautiful. The sex in many of these books that I have, unfortunately, have had the privilege to read is not beautiful. It's gruesome, it's ugly, it's demoralizing, it's racist, it's nothing that I would ever want my children to see. And through my years, thank God I didn't have to see it, being an over 70-year-old woman. I want to share with you a book review committee that I just got to experience in Canby. There is a wonderful library staff there working with the school board, working with the parent groups that are reviewing books and making this work. We have two of the school board members from Canby right here in the audience tonight because they want you to understand that it doesn't have to be ugly and dismal and something many children are afraid to view. Maybe they see this kind of garbage on the internet. You really want them seeing it here in your schools. I have to say that rape is not literacy. It's not beautiful. It's not poetry. Rape is not choice. Rape is not education. It is porn, pure and simple. Please check out what's happening in the libraries.
Hi, my name is Angela Peterson. I am a community member of North Clackamas School District. Actually, I've spoken there quite a bit over the last year and a half. I am also been a licensed teacher, elementary school teacher here in Oregon for over 27 years. I can relate to all of the educators, and I know that we are so grateful of how difficult the job is, especially now. There's so much controversy these days. I just got through with a couple years in Estacada, and I've worked in North Clackamas School District. So we appreciate what our educators are doing and what you all are doing here. Clearly, we're concerned about some things going on in our schools, and I'm going to just speak about the books. Again, I hate to bring it up, but the books. So in 2003, Congress passed the PROTECT Act, which stands for the Prosecutorial Remedies and Other Tools to End the Exploitation of Children Today Act. Under that PROTECT Act, it is illegal to create, possess, or distribute a visual depiction of any kind, including a drawing, cartoon, sculpture, or painting that depicts a minor engaging in sexually explicit conduct and is obscene and depicts an image that is or appears to be a minor engaging in sexual intercourse. This is under federal law. Again, the drawings that some of us have shown the school boards, some people think that it's a cartoon, so it's not as serious, but it is. We just served 14 different state and federal agencies with a criminal report citing all of the state and federal laws that are being broken by a lot of these books in our schools. We are speaking directly of pornography, and it includes all kinds of sex, not just LGBTQ, which we've been characterized as being just focusing on that. And that is not at all the case. We've just heard about the incest, rape, all kinds of different sex. So it's not anything in particular. So just to let you know, they're directly violation of Oregon law. ORS 163688 is possessing material that depicts sexually explicit conduct of a child in the first degree. ORS 163.689, possession of material depicting sexually explicit conduct of a child in the second degree. There's federal laws, 18 U.S. Code 2251, sexual exploitation of children. You know, not to take away from anyone's devastating experience with a sexual assault, who's now maybe an adult, like one of the board members posted something, you know, honoring the Milk and Honey book, but you're an adult and we are talking about children, minors. Thank you.
All right. Janet Bailey. Is that you? Are you coming up? Okay. All right, that concludes the public comment period. And fellow board members, you have future important dates, and I think we are good to close.